Hello and welcome to another edition of PORA Raw. I'm your host, David Russell, along with my co-host, David Paulman. What's up, David?
Good to see you again, Russell. Good to be back with another episode.
Yeah, man. How you been? What's been going on?
Oh, I've been working and then just reading a lot. I've really been getting back into the reading, and it's awesome. And I also, you're really racist against my bow tie, so we need to talk about this.
Yes, we will. We will. And, I just think you look a little bit like Pee Wee Herman, but it's okay, man.
I was going for the James White look. He's got those bright neon bow ties that he wears in all his debates. So I got jealous.
You got to shave your head to be like him, though. Right? And you have a lot of hair, and keep it while you can, because if you're anything like me, it goes away. It runs away from your face, bro.
Well, I was gonna feel bad being the only one with with dirt on my face here, but I see that our guest also hasn't shaved in a while, so.
Yes, speaking of our guests, we are welcoming back Caleb Jackson. What's up, Caleb?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for that introduction. Never had that before. And for the record, I think David looks more like Bill Nye, but we could, discuss that.
Whoa, okay.
The bow tie. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I'm still finishing up college right now, senior year, and finishing up writing stuff. I'm trying to read some more, but when you write a lot and have school, it's harder to fit it in. So I'm almost finished my theodicy book. That will probably be done sometime in the fall, hopefully. It's just in the editing stages, but when you have 300 pages, it takes a while to edit all of it. So.
So Caleb, when you get finished with it, man, send us a picture of it and stuff, and we'll advertise it here as well. Give you.
Sure. We could do an interview on it.
And then, yeah.
And if you send us both a complimentary signed copy, we might even get you a debate with an atheist on it. So who knows?
Whoa, who knows? Yeah, maybe I'll take that on that.
Since I'm going on Skeptics and Seekers this coming up soon, maybe you'll be able to discuss it there too.
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
Because I did ask David Johnson if we could do a show on theodicy, so that would be pretty cool. I'll just have you along to discuss it with an atheist or something, and I'll be your backup.
Sure,
it'd be fun, and that's kind of how we're gonna do it, I think. But besides that, I have some exciting news. We had a newborn come into our family last Tuesday. Anna Lee Rose is her name, and she's as sweet as can be. So we are happy about that, and I'm also happy to be getting back into doing these podcasts. We have kind of took a break since I was kind of doing the maternity leave thing. So, but anyways, besides that, we have had a theme going, right, David? We've had a theme going. We've been talking about presup. All right, presuppositional apologetics, David's a presuppositionalist. He as you could see, he's trying to be like James White now with his bow tie. So, anyways, David, tell us a little bit about why you chose this video to go into and why you've been talking about presuppositionalism lately.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess I was bored with Calvinism and Arminianism. I was stuck in that rut since November with my debate with David Lewis, so I wanted to get into something else. And epistemology is something I've always kind of wanted to go deeper into and haven't really either had time or motivation. And I finally, decided to kind of switch my studies over that direction. And part of the motivation for studying epistemology were these kind of challenges, these skeptical questions that I would get asked by presuppositionalists. And in case anyone doesn't know, I'm not a presuppositionalist, so David made that up. But one of the first people I was introduced to when I was, kind of just running into this new, what seemed to me at the time to be a new method of apologetics, was this guy called Sye Ten Bruggencate, and I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's a very strange name. I'm assuming it's not an American name, but
it's Canadian.
Okay, well, I'm gonna believe that by faith.
You're supposed to be polite. I know. I don't.
No, you always knew that. You always knew it, David.
Yes, and we all knew that. It's a necessary starting point of epistemology. But yeah. Anyway, so this debate that he had with someone who I don't like. All right, I do not like Matt Dillahunty. I think his arguments are terrible. I think his epistemology is horrible. And in this debate, I was on his side the whole way when I saw it, because I couldn't believe someone actually argued for Christianity this way. And I was reminded of a quote by Christopher Hitchens where he once said that something along the lines of nothing, he didn't like anything less than seeing something that was important to him represented badly. And that is essentially what I see presuppositionalism as. It represents something that's very important to me, namely the Christian faith, and it represents it horribly. And Sye Ten Bruggencate, he's not a scholar, so I know people are going to say, well, why are you critiquing him? Because, he's not a scholar. He's not, but he's out there and he's popular, and, he is very forceful about the view. And so that's kind of one reason why I wanted to address him.
Yeah, David, I haven't seen too much of him. Maybe Caleb has. Caleb, have you seen much of Sye recently?
Unfortunately, that's mean. When you first opened, I was tempted to say pre-sup, more like pre-suck, but I'm not that immature. I can't say the same for Sye, but I don't know. See, and David knows, Paulman, because I know that we have two Davids now. He knows that I am more akin to Reform epistemology, so I'm not nearly as anti-presup as he is. However, I don't like tag, and I don't even think Reform epistemology is really presup, but that's a different issue. But it's just very frustrating, because I would agree with Paulman that I hate seeing, one of the best arguments against the existence of God is that they're a bad apologist. You think he would do a better job, but it is frustrating to see, I wish I was out there and just no, don't say that, don't do that. So yeah, there's going to be a lot to talk about in a 13-minute video, which we probably won't even get through the whole thing anyway, but I probably do with what I agree with what most of Paulman said. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Right on. For those that don't know, there's about, there's more than 4 views of apologetics, and there's the classical, the cumulative case, Reformed epistemology, presuppositionalism. We're all kind of like the military. So yeah, we crack on each other, and some of us do think some are bad apologists, but it's kind of like the military, one branch makes fun of the other kind of thing. So if you look at it in that kind of lighthearted way, that's kind of what we do, but we do kind of criticize each other when we think that there are bad arguments, and that's what we're doing today. So without any further ado, I'm going to get this screen shared, turn on the sound, and go into our first.
All right.
Why is it reasonable to believe that God exists? Quite simply, because it's true that he exists. Here's my argument. Premise 1, it's reasonable to believe that which is true. Premise 2, it's true that God exists. Conclusion, therefore, it's reasonable to believe that God exists.
Okay, well, guys, number 1, that's the first one. So David, I'll start with you since you got the big smile on your face there.
Well, in fairness, the debate was, is it reasonable to believe that God exists? But, so sure, I wouldn't dispute the first premise of his argument there, and I wouldn't even dispute the second premise. But the thing is, most of the people there would, so you've got to show them that it's reasonable to believe that God exists. And as, the caption at the beginning of the video said, he just asserted it. There was no argument there for that premise.
All right. Well, and I was kind of like, what? When I first heard that argument, but I do want to, that's all I got to say about that first part. I was just blown away. What really made me laugh was you see Dillahunty starting to take notes, he's getting real serious about this guy's argument, and then he just hears that, and you kind of smile, and he's like, what? And he's stops. But anyways, Caleb, what do you think?
Well, I agree with Paul, and I think that technically it's sound logically, but you have to defend the premises, and you could just replace premise 2 with unicorns or anything, and that doesn't necessarily, it would follow logically, but it doesn't assert it being sound, because you have to defend the premise that it exists. And it kind of comes off, I feel like this is what most amateur atheists think the ontological argument is when they first hear it. Yes. Even though it's more sophisticated than that, but that's what it comes off as, except for the ontological argument, although I don't use it, is at least a lot more developed and sophisticated, whereas this one is just, I don't even know. It's just not good. But to be fair, he does later on, I don't want to spoil it, but he does sort of defend it by saying, going to tag a little bit of, you can't have knowledge without God. So that would at least be an interesting approach to go to. Now, I don't think it works, but we can cover that point when we get to it.
All right. Well, let's continue on, shall we?
I say it's true that God exists. Therefore, it is true that God exists. My argument is sound and the debate is over. How do I know it's real? The same way all of you do. Revelation from the God that all of you know exists. Is it?
Whoa. Okay, so now we're into the weeds, gentlemen. We're into the thick of it. David,
Did you notice did you notice the unstated premise there? He's like, I say that it's true that God exists, or I say that God exists, therefore it is true that God exists. In order to get that conclusion, the unstated premise there would have to be that everything that Sye Ten Bruggencate says is true. I mean, did you just notice like what he made the arbiter of all truth there?
himself.
Yep.
Yeah,
So that was the unstated premise, because it does not follow from I say that God exists to therefore it is true that God exists, unless you have the premise in there that everything that I say is true.
Yep.
And then go ahead.
David, just one quick question for you here, because we start getting into the weeds of this argumentation here. He says everybody knows it to be true. So, I mean, what's up with that? I mean, why does everybody know this to be true? I mean, obviously we go to Romans, right? But how does it? And this is a question I had specifically when I was looking at this, and I was like, if everyone already believes according to Romans, then how do we reconcile John's statement when he says, "I write this so that you may believe"?
Yeah, and so here we might make a distinction between belief that versus belief in.
Right.
That you can have the belief that God exists, or you could have belief in God. So when I think John is writing that, I think he's really talking about belief in there. But presuppositionalists really are very bad about going back and forth on this issue here between belief that versus belief in, and they do fluctuate on those issues a lot. So yeah, I've noticed that issue as well.
Yeah.
Caleb?
Yeah. Caleb?
Well, yeah, and I think that you have to take all of Romans in context, because Romans 10:14 says, "How will they know if they have not heard, and how will they have heard if they have not been sent," and so on, which seems to imply that people don't intuitively know if they have to be given missionaries and stuff. So I think that you have to take the Romans passage with a grain of salt, and to me it seems like it's kind of talking about a reformed epistemology thing to some extent, but I think at the most that gets you to general theism. But I don't think you could reasonably argue, well, I know Sye does argue, but not reasonably, that key word there, that everyone knows the Christian God exists. And I just think that's silly, and that there's just no good, and people bring that up later on of how do you know it couldn't be Allah or other stuff, and his response to that is less than satisfactory. But yeah, it's definitely an unasserted premise. But I mean, I could just say that David Paulman knows presuppositionalism exists because it's revealed to all of us. We all intuitively know. So he's just hiding. He's just trying to hold the resentment in his heart because he loves to sin. But he knows presuppositionalism is true. Anyone can say that. So David, why are you being such a heathen and hiding it in your heart? Why don't you just admit it? Because we all know it, because it's been revealed by God.
Let me also say that there's a basic exegetical point here as well, because obviously he doesn't have access to the content of other people's minds, right? And I even think Sye would admit that. So then we can ask, so how do you know that everybody knows what you're claiming? And his argument for that is going to come straight out of Romans 1. But here's the thing, and I pushed Seth on this. When we just had Seth Bloomsburg on, I pushed him on this point. I said, can you actually get that out of Romans 1, that everyone knows that God exists? Because what he was using is the verse, and I'm not sure which verse it is, but it says that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, nor were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish hearts were darkened, professing themselves to be wise, so they became fools. Do you notice how that's a statement of progression there? It's a past tense verb. It says when they knew God. Now the argument is, but this actually means to have, like this isn't just generic knowing. This is like almost a personal knowing. The word used here is generally used of believers' knowledge of God. And I would say yes, and I think there's a great argument there for the doctrine of prevenient grace. They won't like that because most of them are Calvinists.
Well, they have to be. They have to be, David.
Sye's a Calvinist too.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, and this is, and I have a really good friend that is a presup presuppositional apologist, and he's told me several times that if you don't have the Calvinistic view of total depravity, presuppositional apologetics don't work.
So it don't work either way, but
well, come on, you know what I mean, though, right? You know,
yeah,
well, that was
definitely.
Wasn't that Van Til's whole thing of that we're so corrupt that we can't know anything, and so we have to have divine revelation from God, which that also presupposes, depravity, and that's a whole nother issue. But obviously, I think knowing that he's not a Reformed theologian, that he would disagree with that, and I would too. I definitely don't believe that. But
yeah, the point I was making though is that is a past tense verb. Is it's not saying that everyone presently knows God exists. It's saying when they did know that God exists, but then they suppressed this, their minds became darkened and they became fools. So it doesn't saying that everyone knows it. And I pushed Seth on that, and what Seth said in response to that was, well, we can say things in past tense that are still in the present. Well, yeah, you can, but you're supposed to be making the argument from this text that this text here is teaching that everyone presently knows. You can't say, oh, well, it's compatible with everyone knowing it. If it's just compatible with it but doesn't require it, then you cannot use that as the basis for your argument that everyone knows that God exists.
So do you think that the they is referring to like human race in general and not specific, or like we used to back in our primitive days, but then we became and made idols? Is that how you're interpreting that? Or do you think every person starts off knowing and then loses it in their lifetime?
The
breakdown, generational thing or a lifetime thing, I guess, is my question.
Okay, I would tend to read that as it's an individual thing that everybody, can know that God exists. But the basic point here is that scholarship basically recognizes that Romans 1 is dealing with the person who has had no, revelation from God whatsoever, that they are condemned, they're guilty. Romans 2 deals with the Jew who has had revelation, but he's also condemned. Romans 3 goes on to say, all men are condemned, all have sinned. And so that's kind of the breakdown of Romans. And so I think Paul's purpose in Romans 1 is just to say that even those who have had no revelation from God have sufficient revelation, even if they haven't had special revelation, they can still be justly condemned for the knowledge that they did have. And so for that, I do think it requires that every single individual at least be able to know that God exists.
But knowing God exists is different than knowing the gospel is true, right? Because you can know God exists but not know the solution of the atonement.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right. So that's just a small issue, but
yeah, I mean it's not a small issue, but it's not for them anyway. But anyways,
but Sye's claiming that everyone knows that the Christian God exists, and I'm saying that I don't think you can responsibly interpret Romans 1 in that sense at all.
No,
I agree.
Oh, we got no volume.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
Oh, good, he says. Fix your audio problems, man.
It's not my audio problems. It's a user error here. I messed that one up.
Sye, your computer couldn't take him. I mean, that's kind of how most people react.
Is that odious?
I really hope he doesn't see this because
denial of that claim reduces one's worldview to absurdity. You can't know anything to be true unless you start with God. Everyone here knows that God exists. Why don't I present evidence? Where do you hear evidence out in the world?
What about this one? You don't hear evidence out in the world.
No, he said, where do you hear evidence out in the world?
Right.
And he says in a courtroom. But the reason that, first of all, that's not entirely, I mean, you have evidence in scientific journals and studies and stuff like that. So it's not just in a courtroom. It's, in every area of academia. But
it fits his narrative, and that's what he's trying to go with here.
Yeah.
Obviously. Paulman?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I wanted to let him finish that thought there where he kind of makes his argument about how we're not allowed to judge God.
All right. Well, let's do that then.
In the court of law, who do you present evidence to in court? The judge. When you come up to me and say you don't believe in God, and I present you with evidence, I'm saying that you're the judge. You're not the judge. God is the judge. All of you know that he exists.
All right. Well, there's your point, David.
Yeah, I guess maybe he doesn't make it here. I know Sye has made the argument in the past that the Bible says that you're not to judge God, and so by putting ourselves in this position that we're God forbid that we should actually be able to, critically evaluate and weigh evidence for different positions.
Right.
But basically that is what he's saying. He's saying if you do that, then you are in disobedience to this verse. And I wish I was trying to search for the verse while you were doing that, but I couldn't find it.
Well, yeah. If that's the case, then we should be. I mean, we're really, really messed up, because how do we come to know anything? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it really would be epistemological suicide, and obviously
Yes.
theism. But the verse, what it's saying is, you're not to judge the Lord your God. Does that mean you can't make any judgments about God or about truth in general? It's not what the verse is saying. Contextually, it's saying you do not have the right. You don't have the right to, tell God that you've done something right and you've done something wrong. And basic exegesis will bear that out. Every time in Scripture when God puts it up to people that you can rationally judge what I am telling you as true. We have it in Deuteronomy, the test for the prophets. It says how do you know if a prophecy comes from God? It don't say presuppose it. No, it doesn't say that. It says test the prophecy. If it comes to pass, it's from God. When Jesus was doing, when people were questioning Jesus's divine claims, he didn't say, you just got to presuppose it. Don't judge the Lord your God. No, he said that you are to look at the miracles he's doing. He said, believe for the very work's sake. We always have this presented throughout the Bible that God gives us evidence. He made us as rational creatures. He expects us to be rational. And the way that we show that truth is from him is through reason, evidence, logic, argumentation, just like other apologetic methods engage in. But, that presuppositionalism, to me, looks like it's just trying to be lazy. Did I lose you guys?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see.
If there's a glitch, it's PRA raw, so it's okay. This is just us having fun, guys. All right, so are we ready to move on to the next here? Or Caleb, would you like to add something in there?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think that the verses I've seen him cite in the past would be, thou shalt not put the Lord God to the test, which is what Jesus says to Satan, which I don't think contextually that is relevant. But yeah, no, I think that David makes a good point of saying that, doubting Thomas didn't accept it on presuppositions, nor did Paul accept on the road to Damascus. He just had the epiphany of, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't be doing it. No, he literally went blind and was given all that. So I don't think it's unreasonable. Now there is a part in John where it says, blessed is he who believes me and does not see. So you could make some kind of case there, but I don't think that's referring to presuppositions. I think that's referring to people who have not had a resurrection experience but are basing it on the testimony. That's even why John wrote the entire gospel, so that you may believe. If he thought you could simply presuppose it, he wouldn't even need to write the gospel, because it would just be inherent, so it'd be kind of a waste of his time.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on.
Everyone here knows that God exists, and that's what I'm going to keep telling you. To avoid the God that all of you know exists, sure, you can laugh if you want, but it's absurd. It's absurd.
What my question presupposes is irrelevant to whether or not you're willing to answer and give the explanation that no presuppositionalist has ever done, which is, how is it possible for God to reveal things to you in such a way that you can be certain?
Because he's God. God can do that.
Oh, okay. You've said that you believe that we all already know God exists.
That's right.
And you're convinced that this is true.
It's not whether I'm convinced or not. It is true.
Okay. And it's absolutely impossible for you to be wrong about that.
About that, yes.
Okay. Why would he leave the most important message prone to mistakes from poor apologists, scribal errors, and the limitations of reason, rather than directly revealing that to everyone?
For a reason which is perfectly sufficient for God.
Okay. So you believe that God reveals to all of us in ways that we can all be certain?
Everyone is certain. Not can be certain, is certain. What does it require to doubt the existence of God? It requires God to doubt the existence of God. Because you can...
What? What? David, what?
What is required for you
to
doubt the existence of God? God is required for you to doubt the existence of God.
Wow, talk about highway murder, man.
I think the point he's trying to make here is that all rationality, all reasoning, all cognitive process, including doubt, depends on the reality of God's existence. Maybe that's the case, but you can't just assert that. You have to demonstrate that. You have to show me why is it impossible for me to doubt the existence of God in the absence of God's existence. If your argument is that cognitive reasoning, that all cognitive abilities depend on the existence of God, then run the argument for that. Show me why it is that God's existence is required. Don't just say you are certain of things that I know that I'm not certain of.
Caleb?
Yeah, no, he's if I'm trying to steelman what he's saying, he's kind of doing a tag where he's saying that he's equating knowledge with God. All logic is of God, kind of how the moral argument, all morality is foundational on God, and he's saying the same thing with logic. Matt Slick does the same thing, although at least Matt Slick actually does it in a syllogism, in a deductive form, where Sye just says it and asserts it. So that's a performance difference, and Matt Slick's version is better. It's still a terrible argument, but it's at least better. But it's at least better presented. And I think the reason why it's a terrible argument, first of all, is because there's a lot of debate. Actually, I think William Lane Craig and Peter Van Inwagen had a good discussion on this about abstract objects and Platonism and how does God come into play. And I still don't really have an opinion on that. But I think I would probably take a nominalist view of logic, which is that logic is a property of things that exist. And so as long as something exists, it has to have certain properties. So any material thing, right? But I don't think that means it has to be transcendental. I think as long as any piece of matter exists, it has to have logical properties. So I don't think it's irrational to say that you can have logic without God. Of course, I think that logic does come from God, but I don't use that as an argument because I don't think it's as deductive or as certain. I certainly think it's possible that we could evolve to understand external reality, and that external reality can't contradict itself just because that's a property of existence. If something exists, it has to have a minimal property by definition. If it doesn't have any properties, it doesn't exist. So even if logic describes God, God has properties. So I think that logic is a description, but in order to have a description, you have to have a reference in which you're describing to begin with, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfectly good sense, and I think you explained it well. But I am getting a little upset here because David Paulman keeps defending Sye here. I mean, he's trying to tell us what Sye is trying to say, and I'm telling you, like, if I'm in that audience, I'm probably an atheist going out. You know what I mean? Takes God to doubt God. Without being able to fully explain that, there's a big problem there. You're never going to win anybody that way. But does he care? But does he care because he believes he's in a room of reprobates that have no chance of salvation? So I mean, it's a serious question. Do you at that point
say that at one point? But
yeah, but does he believe that? And does he feel like he doesn't need to give an explanation? That he doesn't need to? I mean, he's talking about sending missionaries, but we send missionaries for a reason. You know what I mean? I don't get where he's going with this. If I'm trying to win the lost, if I'm in a debate trying to win the lost or something, at least to try to push people over the proverbial edge, right? I'm gonna give them good explanations.
Well, what I was trying to do there is say, I think his presentation is awful and it's terrible. But what I was saying is, I think that there was a deeper argument he was, that was there. Like I said, I still don't think it's a good argument. But I was saying, I think there was something he was trying to say, so it wasn't quite as stupid as it might have sounded. But I was saying he needs to draw that out. He can't just assert this stuff because, again, it just has no effect on people. He looks like an idiot when he does it.
I know, and that's what I'm saying here is that you gave more explanation than he did just then by postulating a theory here. But my issue is there's like you said, he has no explanation at all. He
doesn't show us how he's getting here. He's asserting the conclusions without the premises.
And the problem I'm having here is that when you do this, you're not really helping anybody, and it makes me feel like he's just I'm against you, you're against me, I'm right, and instead of, wow, there's somebody out there that's a son or a daughter that is hurting inside that really needs the love of Christ,
Mhm.
you know? And that's, to me, that's why we have to explain. That's why we're called to have that answer. But
Yeah. And
I'll let that rest there.
One thing I really like is, I'm sure you both are familiar with Josh Rasmussen. Is I love his style of debate because he's so interested in building that bridge with the other person, trying to understand them, and just kind of giving you the steps to even just get you a little further, to see where he's coming from. Because I mean, I've read some of his academic work, and this guy can go deep. But here he is, when he's talking with someone, he goes and just connects with them, where they're at, to help them there. Not that Sye is anywhere up here or anything. He thinks he is, but like he's not making an attempt to get to where the person's at.
Mhm.
He's just saying you're already where I'm at, and you already know it, and you're in denial.
I mean, I
Right.
think that's a lot. I don't want to be overly general here, but stereotypically speaking, I think it's a lot with Reformed theologians. I think James White is the same way often, but it feels like, I mean, especially with his God has sufficient reasons, which, I mean, divine skepticism is a thing. I don't deny that, but it just comes off as like, how dare you even, like in Job, like, how dare you even question it? And it's, and God, like he's saying that, and he calls, I don't know if it's in that video, but he calls Matt Dillahunty a liar. He's like, yes, you are lying. God exists. So he's just not even trying to be friendly. I understand there's a point for righteous mockery, but David Wood does the same thing too sometimes. But it's just, if you're representing Christ, you need to have that character about you. You can't be condescending or snarky, because even if you have the better arguments, which he doesn't, but even if you did, then people are still going to resent you because you were just being a jerk. And that's ultimately what they're going to remember, probably more than anything else, even any other argument you made. So I think
Yep.
that's always important.
They'll have a picture of Sye and a clown face, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on then.
Because you can't make sense of any of those without him. Matt cares about truth, so he must care about ultimate reality, right?
I don't care whether this is the ultimate reality.
Wait, what? Matt doesn't care if this is the ultimate reality? Surely that was a slip of the tongue. Surely Matt must care a little bit about what's ultimately real.
Possibilities and reality. I don't care. Sorry, I just really, really, really don't care.
He really, really, really doesn't care.
Sye may bring up things I've said in the past, but he's most likely arguing against straw Matt and is once again engaged in some debate other than this one. Mocked! But it'd be better if he addresses the positions I'm actually defending here.
All right. Now I got to give some credit here to Matt and Sye here, because I think this goes to show like some inconsistencies with atheism. Is throughout Matt's career in doing this, he has made those errors. I don't care about reality or I'm a solipsist. If you watch the whole debate, you see like Sye does this entire presentation, which I think is the only thing that goes well with presuppositionalists, is that they're able to break down someone's worldview. I think that's what they're dedicated to. And I told Seth this as well, and David, I said, hey, they're good at breaking down worldviews. And Dave was like, yeah, they make everybody a skeptic. And it's true. You can break down someone's worldview with presuppositional apologetics. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think presuppositionalism is good as a negative apologetic. So if you're giving arguments against, the coherence at any rate, maybe not if you're giving, evidential problems with another position, but I think presuppositionalists do. I do think that they. I'm trying to think of the right word here. I'll just say they do a good job of breaking down other points of view. But they do a terrible job when they try to then offer positive justification for Christianity. So as I've said before, they can get you into the pit of skepticism. They do that very well. They just can't get you out. Caleb?
Yeah, I would probably agree a little bit with what you said. I don't know if I would even say that it's good at breaking things down. I think he equates the word know, like, do you know that, in a way that means 100% certainty, which is not how most people use know in colloquial language, right? Like, do you know your wife exists? Well, I'm going to say yes. I'm not married, but if I did. But, that would, can I be 100% sure that I'm not a brain in a vat hallucinating her? Well, no, but I mean, that's not what people mean when they say no on a regular basis. But I don't know either of your views on solipsism, but I don't think there is any real solution against solipsism that I can think of, at least. So I think to some degree, everyone, if they're being honest, is sort of a solipsist, but not, I don't think it's likely. I don't think I am a brain in the vat. I can't disprove that, but that's where it comes to properly basic beliefs and stuff like that. But I don't think Sye can get out of that either. I think that it could be possible that Sye's a brain in the vat who's being given delusions that he's getting revelation from God. And Matt brings it up, and he doesn't really rebut that other than saying that's not what the Bible says. But I don't think
it's a delusion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just not consistent, and I think it's just a bad argument. And solipsism is a possibility, especially with, the more people always say brain of that, the more plausible one is like Boltzmann brains, because that's actually more likely in my opinion. But I still don't think it is true. So it's just, I don't know. I think the whole just way he phrases it is just awful. And Sye, if you're watching this, like, I would never want to attack another Christian, and I respect you as a person, but I say this to be constructive, and I just don't think it's a good argument. So I know I've been messing with you all day on the off chance you see this, but I think we could be doing better.
Right. Most presups that I know, presuppositional apologists I know, they actually they bring up the problem of inference. They bring up that problem from the perspective of Hume, which I have a problem with anyway, but they do bring it up, and Sye doesn't do that. And that's another thing that really bothers me. At least explain where you're coming from,
Yeah, and it might
let
be
us know what the problem with inference is, and let's go from there.
It might be able to point out that there are a few different varieties of presuppositionalism, and so what we are critiquing here is very specifically Sye Ten Bruggencate's version. So I'm not saying that there aren't other more reasonable versions, like maybe James Anderson's version, and that would be a separate discussion. But yeah, I guess it would be fair to point out that there's a few different ways of going about it.
All right, gentlemen, shall we move on?
We shall.
All right.
Matt can't know anything outside his own brain, and I have to show that it's true that God exists. He can't know anything outside his own brain, and he's going to argue that it's unreasonable to believe in God. You see, you need to be able to know what's ultimately real to know what's true. I submit that you can't know what's ultimately real without revelation from God. Well, tonight I'm going to wait to see if Matt ever tells me how he can know anything to be true according to his worldview. It's reasonable to believe that God exists. Reason demands truth, and Matt can't make sense of truth without God. Still, we haven't heard how Matt knows anything to be true. That's a problem. Now, Matt has a definition of truth. Truth is that which corresponds to reality. You know what? I don't have any problem with that definition. But the problem is, according to truth is that which corresponds to reality according to who? Truth is that which corresponds to reality as perceived by God, as perceived by an absolute perceiver. Because the thing is, we're all going to have different perceptions. But I didn't like that view because I think it adds an unnecessary step. So truth is whatever God says. Truth is whatever conforms to the mind of God. And without that, you can't know anything to be true. How do you know anything to be true?
All right.
Notice he contradicted what he said before. Oh, I'm hearing an echo here.
He's
All right,
Go ahead, David.
Yeah. He said, originally he said that you couldn't know anything. Well, just here he said that, Matt can't know anything outside of his own brain. But before that, he said, oh, everybody knows that God exists. And this is something that I also noticed, that presuppositionalists, like, maybe there's some way that, I'm misunderstanding something, but to me, it comes across as, on the one hand, they say, oh yeah, everybody already knows all of this stuff. But then on the other hand, they will sometimes act like they can take this point of neutrality and evaluate all these different worldviews and, show that all of them except for Christianity is somehow incoherent. But, you know, which is it? Is it that we all really know that God exists, or is it that we're believing in absurdity that is contrary to, you know, that Christianity is true, that God exists, that, you know, and I can't get clarity from them on which it is on that question. I even tried to push Seth on that a little bit, and, you know, I think I understood his own view on it a little better, but a lot of other presuppositionalists seem to, like, really vacillate.
Yeah. Caleb?
Yeah, well, I don't think it came off as a contradiction to me, because as I understood his point is that under Matt's worldview, he can't know anything outside his mind. I think he's saying Matt does get revelation from God, but just denies it, and that's why he's stealing from God. But he's saying that if Matt's worldview is true, he can't know anything. So I don't think I think he was just kind of playing devil's advocate. At least that's how it. Maybe I'm giving him too much generosity. I don't know. But that's.
I'm gonna give you the bow tie, Caleb. I'm giving you the bow tie.
Okay, but one thing he said that just made me question it was that he said logic is what God perceives, as if it's arbitrary. Like that almost reminds me of the Euthyphro dilemma, but with logic. Like, does God get to make up what is logical, or does I think logic is a description of God? But that doesn't follow that that's, you know, it's maybe identical with him, but it's not God perceiving it, right? It's other than him perceiving himself. So I just think that was a horribly worded, confusing statement.
Yeah, no, good.
Oh, no, you're good. And I also don't think it's true when he said you can't know anything, because even if we grant solipsism, right, which is the only thing can be certain of is your own existence, even that is a knowledge claim. Even if there is no God, I am at least 100% sure that I exist and that I'm experiencing something. Even if I'm the brain of that, I, as the brain, am still experiencing an illusion, which is still an experience. So I can be sure of at least those two things, which means that those two things can be true independent of whether or not God exists. Which, if that is true, then the argument that all knowledge comes from God automatically fails. Now, you could say all knowledge besides solipsism comes from God, which I wouldn't buy, but at least it's a better framed argument. But that's not the argument he's even making, that I can tell. So I just think that any hope for making a logical argument like that is just going to fail on its face.
Yeah, absolutely. David, anything else before we move on?
There was something I was gonna add, but I forgot what it is. It might come back to me, so let's just move on.
All right, moving on.
To be objectively real.
How do I know it? What do you mean by know?
On what basis do you trust your sense and reasoning?
On their continued reliability at producing effective results.
Okay. But you can't account for logical absolutes. That's the problem.
And you keep coming back, as you just did, with you can't account for logical absolutes.
Right.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but neither can you. All you can do is claim that you can account for the logical absolutes. Please account for the logical absolutes.
Well, Matt says something is the case. What he's really saying is, I know it's the case. But the thing is, he's going to want to say, I believe it's the case. Well, do me a favor, Matt. In the future, instead of saying something is the case, be consistent with your worldview and just say you believe it's the case.
How about I say what I want?
Yeah, you can say what you want. The thing is, the reason that you do that is because I challenge when you say something is the case. I say, do you know it? No, I just believe it. But you're saying it as though you know it, and that's the problem.
You just said that when I say something is the case, I'm saying I know it. And I just got done saying that when I say something is the case, I'm not saying
right, but the thing is, you ask anybody.
You know more about what's going on in my head than I do.
Well, I'm saying that if you did a survey of somebody who says, well, this is the case.
So are you calling me a liar?
I'm saying, if you're saying that this is the case,
I don't care about a survey. You said what I meant.
Hang on a second.
You said that I meant something.
That's
Are you calling me a liar?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh boy.
There you go, David.
My goodness.
Your spot there.
Let's say he was right on everything he just said. All right, because I don't think there was a whole lot of content that was going on in there anyway. But like, let's just grant that like the whole presuppositional epistemology works. Is that the way you want to present it? That was terrible presentation under any standard. I mean, I'm sorry, but like it was being rude. I mean, I get Dillahunt, he was being rude too. I don't know how else you would respond to somebody who's telling you, because I personally get annoyed when people tell me what I believe and why I believe it, because like all the times with some of like the debate groups I'm in, like atheists will tell me that like the reason I believe in God is because, I'm scared of whatever I want in afterlife, blah, 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 blah. And, that it has always irritated me when people tell me what I believe. So, I can understand Matt's frustration there, but like, I don't know. That's just a terrible way to treat somebody. Like, am I lying? Yes. That's my thoughts on that.
I got you. Yep. Caleb?
Yeah, well, he did the same thing again of, equating no and, oh, you should just say you believe, which, as we've already said, people don't use no in that colloquial sense. But I mean, I agree with Matt, both when he said, let me say what I want, because that's the honest answer. And the best point he made was he said, I can't account for it, neither can you. I don't think that's wrong. I agree. He can assert that he can, but he can't actually demonstrate it. So I actually completely agree with Dillahunty on that point. And yes, I think David is absolutely right in that the behavior was just inappropriate. And what is even more infuriating is before we were on air, I was telling you about how Sye didn't want to take a picture with one of the coordinators of that debate. Sarah, I forget her name. She's like with Leaving Religion or something like that. But she wanted to get a picture, and he said no because he said that she lied to him in his email exchange. But he wouldn't mind getting a picture with Dillahunty. So he's calling Dillahunty a liar, and he's also calling her a liar, but he won't treat her the same way that he would with Dillahunty. And that just comes off as extremely rude and hypocritical.
Yeah, I agree. The rudeness is there throughout the whole debate.
Mm-hmm.
Just the animosity that you could feel between the two, but more on Sye's part, because I shouldn't feel any animosity from him. He's the Christian. Love your enemies.
Well, Sye thinks that. I mean, he says this in the post debate. He says he doesn't think God loves everyone because he's a Calvinist, but he's like God hates some. So I don't know if he's reflecting that. I don't know if he's saying that these people are reprobates, and if God's not going to show them love, I won't either. I know he probably wouldn't say that, but that's how it comes off to a lot of people. So I don't know. It's certainly a very vitriolic attitude to have.
Yeah, maybe he knows who the reprobate are, and that's why he's
Maybe
not. That's why he's not trying to preach like an Arminian, right?
I think there's one other point to be made here too. Is that recently, I don't know if either of you are friends with Ben Watkins from over from Real Atheology, but he just finished his own work on presuppositional apologetics, and he was looking to get a debate with a presuppositional apologist. And this was just a few days ago. And I was, somebody tagged Sye Ten Bruggencate over there, and Bruggencate says, "Oh, I don't care about debate. I care about souls."
That's what Ray Comfort says too. But.
Yeah, there were two issues there. I was like, first I'm thinking, why did you debate Matt Dillahunty, and why did you debate all these other atheists?
Why did you come in the limelight for like 2 years and then just magically disappear?
I know, if you don't care about debate, you care unless he's willing to admit that he was wrong on something, and that now his focus has changed. But I don't think presuppositionalists aren't big on admitting that they were wrong.
You're a Calvinist.
No, but that was the other thing is I brought up, I was like, Sye, you're a Calvinist. What do you mean you care about souls? You care about the souls of the elect, those who are going to be irresistibly drawn and will certainly persevere. Those are the souls you care about. So I don't know. It seems like a little bit of an inconsistency there.
You know what Mark Driscoll says? He says, believe like a Calvinist and preach like an Arminian.
What do we believe?
Both as an Arminian,
right? But one thing I do notice, and I want to point this out in this segment because it's probably going to be irrelevant for the rest of the time, but I saw Sye getting questioned by another philosopher that was very, very good, and I can't remember what field he was in, but he was questioning Sye on the presuppositional approach, and you could tell like Sye's not very philosophically trained. And when when you see him getting questioned about things, it's like he's like a Mormon. They turn on that Mormonism 101. And they go after you, right?
I would like to apologize for any Mormons watching this, by the way.
I love all my Mormon friends, right? But the thing is like it's like they turn that dial, right? Because and it's like one ear and out the other instead of trying to understand it and maybe changing your opinion, maybe. Mm-hmm. Instead, he just
can't do that.
He just sticks to the program, man.
Remember, you can be wrong, he can't. So we've already established that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But is there anything else before we move on, gentlemen?
I was going to ask, do you want to, finish it out? Because, we're getting close to an hour here.
We are.
You could probably finish it out.
If you're all okay with it, I am too.
I am fine with it. I'm good to go for
Can we
now.
finish the video or just wrap it up here? Oh,
I could go. Uh-oh.
What did you do?
I'm supposed to be going to he said what?
let's just let it play longer and then we can join in.
I had it stop there.
I have a little problem understanding your position, so I have a quick, simple question for you.
Sure.
Do you believe that democracy is the best system in a civilized society?
No, actually. I believe theocracy is.
Theocracy.
Yes.
All right, Caleb, I want your opinion, man. You're the political guy here.
Yeah, so I haven't written as much on this yet, but my opinion on that is I think that that's a horrible idea. We did have theocracy with the Catholic Church, where they would burn heretics and sinners and all that stuff, which didn't end very well. But I think that the whole point, yes, you do have the parts in Romans where it's submit to governing authorities and pay your taxes and all that. But I think the whole point of Christian morality is that it's something that is innate with the individual. It's not something that's forced by the government, right? So when you say Christian theocracy, that implies that you're going to be punishing people for sin, and I think that's just obviously we have to punish people for like murder, but punishing people for like any and every sin, I think is a horrible idea, and I think it'll make more people resent God in the long run, actually. So I think you have to have that sense of libertarianism to truly be free and to truly have just that collective sense of freedom and love for God, because I just think having a Christian-run government is not a very good idea at all. So yeah, he's wrong on that.
And the point I want to make is apparently God doesn't agree with him because God isn't running any theocracies that I'm aware of. So
Right on. Yeah, I agree, gentlemen. I think that's enough said on that one.
Yeah. Is my screen frozen?
It was for a bit.
Oh, it's not now? Okay.
No.
I can't see you all, but
Theocracy.
Put sound effects.
Yeah, I know.
Because without
This
him,
is the
all you can
abridged
do is
version.
follow Matt. If he dies unrepentant, follow him into hell. And I tell you, you're not going to enjoy it there. People are going to say, I'm going to get away from God. You know what? You know who rules in hell? God rules in hell, not Satan. See, that's your offer. That's the offer. Jesus Christ or absurdity. You'll probably walk out of here choosing absurdity because you love your sin. But you know what?
God predestined that.
Is on my side. You all know that God exists. I urge you, repent. Put your trust in Jesus Christ before it's too late, because you will not like your eternity in hell. I urge you. But the problem.
All right, so I got to stop it here. This is about the end anyway, so we'll wrap it up here. All right, we have to comment on that one because we see now it seems he's concerned about people. When the whole debate, you don't get that from him. Go ahead, David.
I mean, even then, I didn't really feel like it was. I didn't feel like compassion or sincerity in the offer. It was just like, agree with me or you will go to hell and you won't like it there. You're not going to like it because God's on my side. I mean, I seriously, that was what it came across as to me. I wasn't like getting any kind of like William Lane Craig in his debate with Christopher Hitchens. First of all, throughout the whole debate, he was, very cordial, gentlemanly, intelligent. And when he gave the gospel offer at the end, it seemed very sincere. Sorry, I didn't feel that way with Bruggencate.
Yeah, me either. Caleb?
First of all, I appreciate David becoming a Southern pastor there for a second. As someone from Kentucky, I can relate to that. So, but yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. And, being a Calvinist, he should really be asking God to make them repent. It does seem a little confusing as to telling them to repent when they can't do anything about it unless God changes their heart. But, that's a conversation for another day. So, yeah, it definitely came off as a turn or burn kind of thing. And, that's never a good approach.
All right. So, gentlemen, we're wrapping up here. And I was looking for the reverse argument that we got such a kick out of, but I couldn't find it.
It's a different video.
Yeah. But, yeah, I opened up the regular debate to see if I could find it, but I couldn't. So, but anyways, ladies and gentlemen, you decide. Presuppositional apologetics. I think this is our last one, unless we can find two presuppositional wants to debate someone else. I hope that we do make good on our idea of doing a 4 views of apologetics roundtable. What do you guys think?
I love it.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun.
And also, our next response video, if we do the one that I sent you, and we'll probably want to take specific clips from that, but that will also be kind of related to that, because it's James White basically saying that the Calvinist can give a answer to the problem of evil, and someone who believes in free will can't. So it will be kind of related to apologetic methodology there.
I don't know how that squares with Alvin planting it at all, but
it doesn't.
It doesn't. All right. Well, Caleb, why don't you tell us where we can find you? I mean, do you have a website or anything you want to put out there about yourself?
No, not at the moment. It's just published books. But whenever it's published, I'm sure you can put the link or promote it or whatever you want to do. Shameless plug.
Yeah, and we're going to see you again, right? We got a debate coming up between David Paulman and your friend. What was his name again?
Aaron Davis.
Aaron Davis. That's right.
Yeah, I'll be doing Q&A, I think, on that. So I'll be.
Yes, sir. Yep, me and you will tag team that one.
And I honestly
we're going to put Paulman.
Debate, so yeah, I don't care who wins, because I'm honestly on the fence. So both of you can try to convert me.
All right.
Well, I'm really gonna be going into the lion's den there, because I'm gonna have a bunch of once saved always saved people.
Well, we got Paulman there, so someone's got to correct him of his heresy. So
I know we've been trying.
He mocks us with the bow tie. Anyways, David, you want to close us out with anything, man? I'll let you close the broadcast.
All right, thanks. Yeah, no, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Some of the reasons there why we are not presuppositionalists on this podcast. We may have some more reasons on that forthcoming, and we'll see if we can get a debate on that for you. But no, yeah, I think that's all we got. And so thanks, everyone, for tuning in.